I could have died. I easily could have died with the situations that I put myself in. I'm very lucky that I never overdosed. So even though I'm not proud of my drug use, I'm grateful to be here today to be able to tell you this story. God morning, my friends. Jesus is my rock. That's how I roll. God morning. Guys, I've got some new merch in, and I'm very excited to tell you that if you go to why do I say that? That's so dumb. Nobody says that anymore. CaliforniaPreaching.com. I've got some really cute stuff. Holy Spirit Activate in pink. And I'm wearing some really cute sweats too with Peace of Christ on the side. All you Bible babes are gonna love the new drop. Really, really cute t-shirts and everything. Anyway, if you want the Jesus vibe, don't forget to subscribe and press the notification bell so that you'll get notifications for every single video that I do. Today, I'm gonna talk a little bit about drugs and how drugs actually may have saved my life. I know that sounds really bizarre, but truthfully, I don't know how I would have gotten through my childhood if I didn't have marijuana, mushrooms, acid, honestly, Quaaludes, alcohol, cigarette, all of that stuff, cigarettes. I don't know how I would have gotten through my childhood. I was in an extraordinary amount of pain as a child. I didn't quite know how to cope and deal with that pain. So when I was introduced to drugs and alcohol when I was about 12, I just thought, this is it. This is the answer. This is how I'm going to be able to cope with my emotions and my feelings. It was like I finally felt at peace with myself. Like I had something to numb the pain. From the moment it was introduced to me, I went for it, and with a vengeance. I made a promise to myself that I was never going to touch the hard stuff like cocaine and heroin. I was hanging out with some really lovely, amazing girls that I really considered to be like family to me, and I still speak to many of them. We were all kind of on the same boat. We all came from splintered families, and we did become like each other's little family. We were all in so much pain, and we were all choosing to deal with that pain by numbing ourselves out through alcohol and drug use. My angel's walking, so I guess we're walking too. Oh, look, I also have this pouch that says Peace of Christ, and it's just a little, little pouch to walk, jog, run errands with. It's great for your wallet, whatever, keys. Back to my story. I liked the feeling of being drunk. Sometimes I overdid it and I got sick, but very quickly I figured out what I could manage and what I couldn't manage. I didn't hang out with people who didn't party as hard as I did. If you couldn't keep up, you were out. It's basically what it came down to. A few of my girlfriends started getting into some really, really, serious stuff, cocaine. And like I said, I had made a promise to myself because my father had ruined his entire life with cocaine and heroin. So I made the decision that I was never, ever going to touch that stuff. Once my friends started doing the cocaine, of course, there was a lot of peer pressure. And I remember one night in particular where my friends were just like, come on, Chynna, you're going to do it eventually. So why don't you just do it tonight? No, I was just in a very bad place at that particular time. I succumbed. And I actually did it that first night. And I have to say, it wasn't a horrible experience. Once the cocaine became sort of like a weekly thing, we started hanging out with some kind of shady people. They started inviting us over to their house and, giving us free drugs and alcohol. Some of them were even like taking us shopping, and I'm not gonna lie, there was definitely some sexual favors that were expected in return for the drugs and stuff, which was really humiliating and really just dark, basically just incredibly dark. I didn't do a ton of acid per se, like the squares that people used to get. They might still do it. I don't know. I did do a fair amount of magic mushrooms. I remember being in Hawaii a few times and doing it with my friends. And again, at the very beginning, it was more recreational and just kind of like having fun with it. But then it became more of like, every single week we were doing magic mushrooms, and just scary, I mean, my brain obviously was still developing. I just look at my kids now and I think to myself, oh my goodness, like that's what I was doing with my life when my kids were, the age that they are now. And it makes me really very sad that I didn't have, anybody there to sort of redirect me and be a mentor for me. Every child should have at least 3 or 4 people in their life they can consider mentors or good examples. And I know I definitely didn't have that. I remember when we were in Hawaii and we were driving down this country road, my friend saw all these cows and she was like, run into the field, let's run into the field and pick the magic mushrooms. And I was like, wait, magic mushrooms like come out of manure? I was so confused. And yeah, apparently that's where they come from. Who knew? So we all proceeded to go into this field and pick the magic mushrooms and take them later that evening. Yeah, I had a very, very bad trip that night. I was seeing double and triple, and people's feet were like 3 feet long. I just remember thinking, oh great, now I've really done it. This is the way I'm going to see for the rest of my life. I've damaged my vision. And I just remember being petrified. But I was still unwilling to give up that lifestyle. I was still in a ton of pain, and I just couldn't even imagine myself as like a girl who didn't party. I mean, I was the epitome of the party girl. I was hitting the Hollywood clubs. I was hanging out with the cool people. I was staying out until 5, 6 in the morning. I just couldn't even imagine a sober self. I never even really contemplated it. But then one night, I'll never forget, it was July 4th, and I had gone onto a boat with a few of my friends, and we went from the Marina del Rey on a boat to Malibu, and then we took a little dinghy from the boat to the Malibu shore. I ended up getting so high on cocaine. I don't even remember how I got home. I don't remember much about that weekend or that day. I just remember waking up a couple of days later, and I went into my boyfriend's bathroom, and I was just gonna, wash my face. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and my skin was green. It had a green hue to it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just had this overwhelming knowing that I was gonna die. I went to a party that very night. I ended up drinking until the wee hours of the morning. That morning, I had a video shoot to do. I was doing a music video for Jefferson Starship, and I was playing Lolita. I was like, how am I going to work today? I've been up for 24 hours. But I pulled myself together as best as I could, got in the car, drove to the set, worked all day long, and I started to feel some stomach pain. And it just was like this, every 2-3 minutes, I would feel like my intestines twisting, but I didn't think much of it. And the next morning I went to school. I got to school and I went into the girls' bathroom, and that pain just started, but this time with like a vengeance. And I was doubled over in the girls' bathroom, and I heard some girls come in, and I thought, oh no, like, shoot, I'm in trouble now, because I was like definitely going to the bathroom, if you know what I mean. And these girls would not leave the bathroom. Like, they were in there doing their makeup and their hair, and they were gossiping. And I put my feet up on the toilet because I was just like so embarrassed, and I didn't want them to figure out who was in the bathroom. Finally, they left. And when I stood up and looked in the toilet, it was filled with blood. I immediately got into my car and drove home, and I just thought, I'll just get into the bathtub. That's what I'll do. I'll just get into the bathtub to calm these cramps down. A few minutes later, the entire tub was filled with blood, and I was so scared. I didn't know what was going on. So my mom was out of town, and I think, I'm not even 100% sure, but I think I called 911, and I have no recollection after that what happened. I got whisked to the hospital. All I remember is waking up to these two people standing over me that were strangers, big smiles on their faces. And they were like, "Hi, Chynna." And I was like, "Hi, who are you?" And they said, "Yeah, we're here. We're friends of Aloma." And Aloma was this woman who was just like fiercely into Alcoholics Anonymous. And she was literally a pillar of that program. And she was one of my mother's closest friends. She passed away last year. God bless her soul. Wonderful woman. Anyway, she had sent these guys to the hospital to talk to me. So these guys proceeded to talk to me about sobriety and about how I didn't have to live this way anymore. And I was like, I don't even know why I'm in the hospital. Who are you? And where am I? And why am I here? They left, and then a few hours later, the doctor came in, and he said, "Well, hi, Chynna." And I said, "Hi." And he said, "You, my dear, were very, very sick. You had 5 bleeding ulcers. 5 bleeding ulcers, 18 years old." He said, "Listen, if you don't get clean and sober, I'm going to have to tell your mom that we found cocaine in your bloodstream." And I was like, ooh, tell my mom, like, that's so scary. I really wasn't that concerned with him telling my mother. I got out of the hospital after about a week, and they had me on major antibiotics. I just remember that I thought to myself, that was a scary experience, but I feel really good right now. I mean, I'd been in the hospital for 5 days. I hadn't done any drugs. I felt clean as a whistle, and I had all this energy. I just felt great. I was ready to party. Pretty much that night, I called up my girlfriends and we hit the clubs, and we were getting into clubs, you know, that we should not have been getting into. I mean, we were not 21 years old, but the bouncers didn't care. They were just like, oh, some cute girls, let them in, you know. It was just a disaster. Continued to party like that for about another 8 months. Then I just had a moment of clarity. I had been booked on a Pepsi commercial with Johnny Depp and Sherilyn Fenn from Twin Peaks. I was very excited about it. I had a, leading part in this Pepsi commercial, and it was going to play nationally in movie theaters throughout the country, and I was psyched. So I showed up on set. I was about an hour late, and I got the hairy eyeball from the director. The reason I was late was because I had been up doing coke all night long. I proceeded to, do my job, and the director just kept saying to me, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" And he said, "You just seem very anxious, and you're reading very anxious on camera." I didn't know what he was talking about. Maybe my eyes were pinned, maybe I was jittery. I really didn't know what he was talking about. Long story short, they never ended up using any of my footage in that Pepsi commercial. My agency called me and said, we got a very, very bad report back from the director from the Pepsi commercial, and he never wants to work with you again. And I was just like, I'd never heard anybody say anything like that about me before, and I was pretty mortified. I had also had an abysmal audition that week. I'd gone in there thinking I was prepared and just fumbled over all my lines, and they laughed at me. And I was just so humiliated. I just went home that night after my agents had told me that the Pepsi director didn't want to work with me anymore, because he was a pretty prominent director at that time. I just felt really down and just really bad about myself. I had also that month failed out of high school, and I just was at an all-time low. So again, I looked at myself in the mirror and I just sort of said, like, okay, Chynna, what are you doing with your life? What do you want to do with your life? You need to take a very good look at yourself and at your situation and your circumstances. And is this the life you want to live for the next 20, 30 years? Do you have any dreams or aspirations or plans? Because if you continue like this, it's going to be a dead end. And I knew it. I don't know if it was a higher source. I don't know if it was God, the Holy Spirit, but I just felt like I knew exactly what I needed to do. And I called my only sober friend that I knew and asked him if he would take me to an AA meeting that night. And that's what I did. I went to an AA meeting, and I don't remember anything they said that night, but I just cried my eyes out in the meeting. And I knew that my journey with drugs and alcohol was legitimately over. And that leads me to this hat. Where God guides, He provides. I really felt kind of hopeless. I just didn't know where I was going to go and what my life was going to look like when I got sober. I just thought this is going to be a complete bore. I started going to all of these AA meetings and making some new friends. And slowly but surely, I started to feel more hopeful, and I got a therapist, and I started working through some of my issues, and they were intense. My issues were intense, and I had a lot to process. God bless Dr. Marlene Schoen. I am eternally grateful that I was able to pull my life together at such a young age. By the time I got sober, I was 19. I couldn't live that life anymore. And I don't even believe that I made that decision. I truly believe that God had His hand on me. He had a plan for my life. But I had to get to a place of surrender, and I had to get to a place of coming to terms with the fact that I had a problem with drugs and alcohol. Stopped having cravings for drugs and alcohol, I would say, even just a few weeks after I got sober, which was a total and complete blessing, because I know not everybody has that experience. I just started exercising, and of course I got the worst food addiction after I got sober. It's not funny, but I mean, I just transferred one disease onto the next. I have a lot of grace with myself when it comes to my drug addiction, because I do believe in the deepest depths of my soul that it was a Band-Aid that I needed to help me get through my teenage years. Because if I didn't have those drugs and alcohol to numb me and to help me be able to cope with my reality at the time, which was very painful, I don't know if I would have survived my teenage years. I don't know. I don't know if I would have been suicidal, or if I would have fallen into chronic and clinical depression that I may have never come out of. The feelings that I had inside of me were so overwhelming. I knew I needed to cover them up. So even though I'm not proud of my drug use, I try not to come down on myself too much about the fact that I used drugs as a teenager, because I was in excruciating pain. I had to stop the pain. I had to stop the bleeding. You know what I mean? I'm just incredibly grateful that I made it through that time in my life, because I know several people who didn't make it through. I could have died. I easily could have died with the situations that I put myself in. I'm very lucky that I never overdosed. I'm grateful to be here today to be able to tell you this story. It's actually shocking to me that I wasn't able to see how my body was breaking down. That's how cunning and baffling the disease of drug addiction is, and alcoholism. It's just such deep denial. Such deep denial. The people in Alcoholics Anonymous kept saying to me was, you can do this for one day. You can just don't do drugs today. Because they used to say, how am I not going to do drugs for the rest of my life? And they'd say, just for today. And where do you think that song came from? Oh, hold out for one more day. You can do anything for one day. So thank you for listening to my story. And I just want to show you a couple more little pieces I have here that you guys might like. Okay, so we have a forwarding all issues to heaven. Super cute top. I am strangely dependent on God, which I love. I love this shirt. I am strangely dependent on God. We should all be strangely dependent on God. And then we have some other piece of Christ swatch, which I think I showed you when I was in Mary's garden. But yeah, really cute gray with blue piece of Christ print. Gotta love it. We have a little piece of Christ fanny pack and lots and lots and lots and lots of new t-shirts with lots and lots of one-liners that I think you guys will really love. So I love you guys. Peace of Christ. Hey you guys, if this video blessed you in any way, I pray that you will subscribe, and I also pray that you'll press that little button next to the subscribe, because that is an alert button and it will give you a notification every single time there's a brand new calpreach. And of course, share, because sharing is caring, and you just never know who's going to find the peace of Christ. Amen.